Okay, we are live. Welcome to the stream. We've got another great Imperial format, locals format for y'all out there. I'm going to be starting the tournament pretty soon because we got 8 people, so it's a fair amount of people in there. I can go to the challenge just to show you. We got 8 people. That's a pretty good number. And I don't think there are going to be too many more people joining. This is kind of like not the most popular format. Imperial format is very fun. We're holding a locals in it. So it'll be a good time. Yeah, I mean, I do think this format it's very underexplored, and I think there is a fair amount of depth to it that could come through in the games. So I'm gonna start the tournament here real quick. I think I'll start on Discord, and then yeah, I mean, unless there are like any like last minute stuff that people want to sign up, but I think it's probably this is as many we're gonna get. Yes, I did actually hear about the Light of Destruction reprint. I think that's really cool. I like when they reprint old sets. I think it's fun, especially if there's new sort of support for those old archetypes. I think that can be fun as well. So I'm really excited for the Light of Destruction reprints. I mean, I have a lot of nostalgia about Light of Destruction. It was around the time when I was, still buying cards from packs and things. And so I really enjoyed it. I feel like there is sort of that magic lost where like as a kid, you're just buying the packs, right? You're not buying singles. So, there's a bit of surprise as to what you get. It feels more earned as to what you get, Yeah, I know there's no confirmation that it's coming to North America. I hope it does. That'd be really cool. But even if it just goes to Europe, I mean, you can like ship them to America, worst case scenario. I mean, that's more expensive, so it's unfortunate that it happens like that. But yeah, I mean, there are ways that we could get those, but yeah. But yep, so we are starting the games. So let's dive in to is this the correct? Yeah, I think this is the right bracket. Yep. So that should be good. Yeah, that's the bracket indeed. So we got some pretty good matchups here against some people who've been in the locals for a long time and also people who, have not been in as many locals. So I'm very excited to see how the games go. I'm going to real quick just hop into the voice chat on Discord just to be here. I like to hang here as we have the stream. And thank you, Zabuma. Yeah, I'm happy with this haircut. I was planning on initially getting a haircut, just like, after I finish covering DM, which should be like next week. We should wrap up with Warrior format, and I'll release some sort of like retrospective DM era stuff. And it should be fun. But like, I then started like filming some goat collabs that I'm planning for goat format, and I realized that like if my hair is still long there, it would be kind of weird to be short then long. So I figured I'd just cut it now. But yeah, Rain Dance, welcome back to the stream. Yeah, it's been a while, but happy to have you here. And yeah, if you can play in the next locals, that'd be awesome. Next locals should probably be Friday night. Just because we're preparing for the Imperial tournament starting on the following day. So if that works for you, that'd be great. It'd be awesome to have you back in the games and stuff. But yeah, hopefully they reprint more than just Light of Destruction. That'd be awesome to see. We got our first game here against Soul 65 and Dump Truck here. Two very, very good duels, have been in a lot of these locals before. So powerful matchup in the first round. Let's see who will make it through. But yeah, let me know what you think about the haircut. I mean, a lot of people have been saying that it's very nice, which is nice to see. It's always nice when people are like, hey, you're looking good. A bit of a confidence boost. But I'm sure there are people out there who like the longer hair. But if enough people say just, keep it short, then maybe I'll just get more frequent haircuts. But we get a set from Soul and a knock on that, hitting a Flying Kamakiri #1. So it seems like Soul's on a bit of a spicy brew. Could be Harpies, could be something else related to wind. I'm not really sure exactly what other wind monsters there are. It could just be a recruiter strategy in general where you're just playing the elemental recruiters because they thin out your deck a bit. But very interesting tech there. So we also see Dump Truck on the main deck Nox. Nox is a very powerful card in this format. But a lot of people choose not to put it in the main. They put it in the side or things like that. In the main, it can be very powerful, though, because a lot of people aren't expecting it main necessarily. Mechanical Chaser comes down. That is the highest attack point, level 4 monster in the format. 1850 attack. Not as high as something like Gemini Elf, which will come in the following format. But it is still very good. And so Banish of the Light will wall that up, but, that's still a threatening monster that Soul's bringing out there. Banish of the Light is also a very interesting monster. Oh, wow. Okay, this is a big play on Dumptruck's part, getting in for 3250 and then tributing off that Mechanical Chaser, which will banish it. And something else the Imperial Format introduced into the format is introduced Premature Burial and Call of the Haunted as well. So people are playing Reborn, Call of the Haunted. A lot of them are playing Premature as well. So that's 3 cards in the deck that Banisher kind of can blank. So it also blanks, like, the recruiters like the Flying Kamakiris and things like that. I blanked a lot of monsters here. Dark Hole's going to come down and clean that up, though. Very good card from Soul. And that will make things a lot easier for them. So Reborn here, as I said, Reborn, Banisher blanks Reborn there, but Cannon Soldier is now engraved, so they can bring out the cannon. And Dumptruck's going to ask if they want to use the Cannon Soldier effect with priority. Soul's going to say no. That makes perfect sense. And no response there. Torrential Tribute is not out in this format yet, I believe. Yeah, it comes out Labyrinth of Nightmare, and this is for Pharaoh's Servant. So, yeah, no Torrential yet. You don't have to worry about that. So there are very few ways to stop special summon monsters in this format. But yeah, Jinzo coming down. Very powerful card. Snatch Field's already used up. So, Soul doesn't have to worry about that. And this card can just keep putting on the pressure. This is a 3-turn clock. And if Dumptruck doesn't have a way to deal with it, then it could just close out the game on its own. So, we'll have to see if Dumptruck is able to actually get rid of that thing. But it is tough. There aren't really many ways to do that. They're going to set one. It could be a Man-Eater Bug. People are still on Man-Eater Bug in this format. Because it is good removal. So that could definitely be the set. And so we'll have to sort of worry about that potentially. But it could just be, a random chump blocker that's just, yeah, okay, it's a Tomato. Tomato can get you into Sangan or Witch, which can then get you into other things. Dumptruck could also just bring out a Tomato. But yeah, they're just going to go for the Sangan there, just in case. Because people do still play Fisher in this deck as well. So, if a Fisher is in Soul's hand, then you obviously don't want to bring out Tomato because then you lose all value there. So it is safer just to go for Sangan. Reborn coming down on Dumptruck's side. We see the different arts here. Dumptruck on the TCG art, Soul on the OCG art. And we see a Tomato coming down and a Raigeki coming down to clear that Jinzo. That's going to be pretty rough. This will get in for 2,400. That is a 2-turn clock for Soul. So if they got like a Mirror Force or something, they might want to use it now, but it looks like they're just going to take that full amount. Time Seal getting activated as well. Cutting them off from a draw to draw into something to get them out of the situation. MST coming down as well on the set just to clear that away. Hitting a Mirror Force that's very, very good for Soul to hit. Now they don't have to worry about Mirror Force. But either way, they just admitted defeat because they did not have a way to deal with that. So the MST was for more information. But as is, nothing much they can really do there. So they're going to go into another game here. We're going to dive into another one of the matches we've got in the local, just hopping around, seeing who's playing who. Next one, we've got History of YGO1 versus Danny Droid here. And let's see what happens here. Change of Heart on the Cannon Soldier is going to be really good here for History of YGO1. This could potentially be a major damage turn. So the two sets are likely Nibble mangas because, the manga is engraved there. So there is a question of whether you actually want to flip them up and play into like Mirror Force. But it looks like Dream Clown's going to come down. So it seems like History of YGO1's on a Clown Control strategy. Clown Control is pretty good in Treasure format. And it can have some applications in Imperial format as well. It didn't really lose anything from this format. I think that other decks did get a little bit more powerful. So that potentially is hampering Clown Control a little bit, but the bones of the deck are still there. So I think it could definitely still be like a tier 2 deck at the very least. So we're getting to see it in action here. I love Clown Control. I think it's a really, really neat deck. And I always, am happy to see it played in these tournaments. Dark Hole, though, clearing the entire board. That's going to be brutal. 3-for-1 trade there. Although, if you conceptualize it like it's trading for 1 manga and 1 clown, then it's kind of a 2-for-1, but it's still effectively a 3-for-1. So very, very good stuff. And Dan's going to set one. Seems like they don't have any aggressive pressure to get in here and chip away at History of YGO1's 9,000 life points. Pot of Greed is going to draw History of YGO1 into more stuff to do here. So Danny's in a tough spot for sure. It's looking rough for them. They're going to bring out Witch too, and Witch is very good because Danny has like a removal card here. You don't necessarily want to use it on the Witch because Witch should have something good. So, that's just one of the best monsters there. And Danny will be forced just to use Trap Hole on it, saying, I don't really have any other removal. I got to Trap Hole this just to stay alive, really. But that is always a sad trade with the trap hole when you have to trap hole Sangan or Witch. Always very unfortunate. But Mechanical Chaser is going to get searched out. That's added to hand. And that'll be able to come down and hit into Danny's life points potentially next turn. So what is Danny going to do here? Will they have another monster? Do they have a way to stop the Mechanical Chaser? Like, what's going to happen here? They've only gone through one Cannon Soldier too, so they've not been getting many monsters here. That's kind of unfortunate for Danny. Normally, most of these decks play a good enough number of monsters that you draw them early enough, but maybe Danny's playing a deck that's more focused on spells and traps. Maybe they're just not drawn into what they need. They're going to set one, pass back to History of Wide 1. Might be a Recruiter, might be a Sangan and Witch of their own. Could just be a monster that, can't beat over Mechanical Chaser, so they're setting it to save some of their life points. But either way, History of Wide 1's got to think about what that might be, and Nock will sort of trivialize that decision a little bit. Now, Danny could potentially have Imperial Order there, but they do not, and the Giant Soldier Stone will get banished off the Nock, and a Rat coming down. That is quite unfortunate for Danny here. This will be 1,400 damage going in. That is rough stuff for sure. But, it might not be the worst thing in the world. They're dropping down to 2,500 there. And, yeah, it's a scary spot to be, but it's not the end of the world necessarily. It really depends on what they've got to deal with that Rat. If they don't have anything, then they're in a tough spot. But as is, not the worst position to be in. Although that 9,000 life points from History of Wide 1, that's going to be tough to surmount. Reborn here coming down. What will they be bringing back? They're going to bring back this Cannon Soldier, so that implies that they might have a Change of Heart, might have a Snatch Steal. Let's take control of the Rat, and then get in for 28. Yep, they do have the Change of Heart, so that'll take control of the Rat there, and then Danny will get in for 28, tribute off the Rat for another 5. Unfortunately, the Mechanical Chaser will be able to get over the Cannon Soldier if Danny does not have a way to deal with that Mechanical Chaser. So, yeah, it's not looking the best for them here. But, it's better that they tribute off the Rat than tributing off the Mechanical Chaser, to be fair. So, yeah, maybe it's Wide 1 sort of summoned out the Mechanical Chaser because that was known on Danny's part. Like, Danny knew about the Mechanical Chaser. Although I guess they might have known about the Rat anyways. But Premat coming down here, likely targeting the Rat, but MST coming down to hit that Premat. Get rid of that. Mechanical Chaser coming down as well. Does Danny have a way to stop this? Nope. Looks like that will go through. So that's going to attack over the Cannon Soldier, deal 450. And that's kind of rough. But, they are still in an okay position. There are plenty of draws that can get them back into this. It's just the History Wide 1 could kill them almost at any point. So, it is definitely an upward battle for Danny Droid here. It's very likely that History Wide 1 will win this first game here. Although I guess it depends on what they do. They're going to bring out a Rat here, try and get the aggressive pressure going, attacking into the set with the Mechanical Chaser, and it is a Tomato. So Tomato will be able to get out another Tomato from deck. And both players have the same amount of sort of elemental recruiters in deck in terms of like the Rats versus the Tomatoes here. So if they do just start crashing, and that last card in hand is not a giant Rat of History Wide 1's own, then they will be able to get to sort of the final stage of these monsters here. So on Danny's part, that'll probably be like a Witch of the Black Forest or something. On History of Wide 1's part, that might be like a Dream Clown if they're playing another in deck. History of Wide 1 could also be out of targets if they're not playing more than one Dream Clown. But they might be playing more than one Dream Clown just because they want a target in deck. Okay, yeah, looks like no targets left. So that's going to work out pretty well for Danny here. They're able to get out either a Witch or a Sangan. They're going to get out the Witch, which can potentially get them something to deal with the Mechanical Chaser. Either way, deck thinning at this point is useful because, Danny wants to draw a way to deal with this board because they're in a scary spot. But yeah, with 4,900 life points left on History of Wide 1's part, there are some things that can do it here. It's not the most likely thing in the world, but there are some things that can do it. So we need to see what Danny does. Either way, this sort of stabilizes a little bit. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, definitely some tricky stuff. Forceful here coming down. That's very, very good for Danny. But hitting a duo. Yeah, the duo's kind of dead at this point. But if History Wide 1 draws the duo again, I guess it's a dead draw. But yeah, I mean, you do what you can. And if you draw the hand rip at this point, you just kind of got to play the hand rip, History Wide 1's going to hit over the Witch. That's going to clear that. Danny will get a search here. Not really sure exactly what can help them out of the situation. They do know that History Wide 1 is on Nock in the main deck. Now, Nock is semi-limited in this format. There's only one Nock remaining left in deck, or, on field or in hand. So Danny could potentially play into the knock a little bit, but, you know, it is kind of risky. Sometimes you got to take risks, you know. Sometimes you got to risk it for the biscuit. We'll have to see exactly whether they do risk that or are they going to go for something more aggressive. It's tough to say. Mechanical Chaser is the highest attack on a monster in this format, so and not much they can do. Comfy, though, coming down, ripping that last card out of the hand. That is brutal. Now Danny is in pure top deck mode. Nothing left. That did cost History Writer 1,000 life points, so there's something. But it is pretty rough there. You'd want to keep that saying in. Fisher on the Mechanical Chaser. Okay, that does clear that. Io coming down, though. That is going to be brutal for Danny. And yeah, that might just be the end of the game, honestly, because Io is just nasty in this format. And will they keep the Io up? They do have to pay 700, but this might not matter at this point if Danny's just losing this. Yeah, Danny lost the game there at that point anyways, so it didn't matter. But in general, you do just want to pay for the 700, just get in the habit of doing that. But anyways, we've also got PJ Darkness versus Hylian 93 here. And wow, this is a pretty intense game, it looks like. Some knocks coming down, banishing a Magician of Faith and a Mass Sorcerer. Yeah, Saiyan does get a card when it's trap hold. That is very true, because it is destroyed. So, yeah, and also something to note in all these old DM era formats, Saiyan has its original effect, so it doesn't have this this last part where you can't activate cards with their effect or play the card or whatever. And also, you can only use the effect of Saiyan once per turn. You can use it as many times as you want. You can activate it the same term that you search it. So, good to know. Doesn't come up often, but it can come up in the case of something like Karibo or something. So it's good to keep in mind there. But hello, Hylian. Hope y'all are enjoying your games. So it looks like Hylian won the first game here. And yeah, it looks like they're just starting game 2. Upstart Goblin coming down. Upstart is a very interesting card in this format. I know, you know, the hope in theory that you should just be playing upstarts to sort of thin out your deck a bit, but there's only one upstart in this format, and also life points matter a lot more in this format, so a lot of people are not playing upstart. But it would be interesting to see if more experimentation, if more people play it. I know in GOAT format, like, a lot of decks don't play, like, 3 upstarts, and so I really think it does depend on the deck. GOAT format's been labbed at a lot, which is why I bring it up. Same with Edison. Like, Edison, a lot of decks aren't playing, like, triple upstart, right? So I think definitely it really does depend on the point in the game's history where you are in terms of like whether triple upstart or max number of upstarts that you're playing is worth it or not. And it depends on the deck as well. But blind sniping, one of those cards there. Maybe not a blind snipe. I don't exactly know what happened, but Chain of Heart coming down as well, just getting in 1,000 damage off the Sangan. Yeah, that's definitely something you can do here. It's kind of awkward because Change of Heart's such a powerful card, but oh, and call for their own Sangan. So they're just going all in for 2,000 damage here. I feel like this is sort of like playing the power cards too early, but if you do get aggressive enough, you can potentially win the game early enough that it doesn't matter. So there definitely is something to be said for that, but I don't know. I generally like to save the power cards for like either something I can't out or like, you know, making that last push for damage. Because now you don't have access to that power card, right? Like now Change of Heart's gone. Call the Han's used up on Sangan. So it doesn't even bait out like an MST, because something you could do in this format is if your opponent just MSTs one of your back row blindly, you can chain call the Han into it, get back the Sangan, get a search off that. But I guess that effectively works the same here. But yeah, Sangan attacking into the Morphing Jar, that was known. So PJ will discard, yep, just 2 monsters that they didn't necessarily want to commit to field. And that makes a ton of sense there. So, yeah, main 2, PJ can now commit a monster to field. They can do a variety of things depending on what they drew. They have not drawn any hand rips yet. So if they're still on the hand rips, which they very well might be, I think that they probably are, because they were going first this game. So if they still are on the hand rips, they can use a hand rip here. And yep, they do indeed draw a hand rip into Forceful. So that way they get to see what Hylian is working with here. So that's very powerful. Getting that hand knowledge and also shuffling one back is very strong. It is important to note, ultimately this is still a 1-for-1. So it is good to keep in mind in terms of like the theory of this, that Duo is the only hand rip that isn't just a 1-for-1 trait. So, you know, it's good to know that. But I think that like it still is very powerful. I think honestly the knowledge is a little bit better than the card advantage here, especially in the hands of a good player, because for a good player, like if you know the hand, right, you can effectively turn a 1-for-1 trade into more than just a 1-for-1 trade because you know things that your opponent's likely to do. You can manipulate the game in a way that they basically make faulty trades or just bad plays overall, because you know what they're doing and you can sort of guide the course of the game with that. So that's my 2 cents on the hand rips there. But I definitely think that duo is very powerful. Don't get me wrong. It's just the others are more powerful in my opinion. A pot of greed as well is going to be pretty good here. And setting one, setting another, setting a ton here. Could be a morphing jar of their own. Okay, yeah, setting 4. Maybe it is a morphing jar of their own. They're just going to pass back to Hylian as well. They probably know no Heavy Storm or Harpies, or else they wouldn't do this. Or they've got an Imperial Order in the back row. So yeah, this is going to be pretty good for PJ likely. Snap Steal on the Sangan. That is kind of wild. Normally you don't want to take a monster that your opponent is fine destroying, right? Like if Sangan is not that hard to kill, and also it gets PJ search if they kill it. So like it's not necessarily the best to snatch a Sangan in most cases, but if you want to get aggressive, I guess it's something that you can do. It also does give your opponent 1,000 life points every turn as well. But yeah, they're going to attack into a tomato, so that does wall up the Sangan there. And this is going to get a little bit awkward now, because now PJ gains 1,000. That Sangan didn't really do much. And worst case scenario, PJ can attack over it. Fissure, okay, that will clear up the tomato there. But ultimately, the Sangan is not trading for life points, because PJ is gaining back whatever they lose from the Sangan. So, yeah, it's definitely a bit awkward here. But hello, welcome to the stream food. How you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah. How'd your game go? Did that wrap up already?
Yeah, I won the game.
Nice. What was M-Shobes playing?
He was playing some like beatdown variant with like Dark Elf main, then Cyberjar main. He also had Mass Sorcerer.
I have seen a couple Mass Sorcerers. Like if you look in the banish zone of PJ versus Hylian, there's a Mass Sorcerer banish there. So more people seem to be experimenting with that card, which is kind of interesting.
Probably because its defense is more important than its attack, in my opinion, because it can't really hit over anything. But as a defensive like monster, it can like wall a witch, wall a Sangan. It can also wall a tomato if needed. And
Yeah.
then the draw effect is always good.
Yeah, and the only thing it doesn't wall is Mechanical Chaser.
Yeah.
And that's a very important dynamic in this format, because this is before Android, so you don't have Bazoo, you don't have Elf, you don't have Kaiku. So really, the only thing that people are playing besides Jinzo that's over 1400 attack is this Mechanical Chaser, which does make it interesting for things like Dark Elf, and Jirai Guma potentially. Maybe that will be something that people start doing more in the future.
Yeah, I think if people start orienting around like Gumo and Dark Elf, people will probably start minting Robin Goblin as well to make it so you benefit even more from the high attack monsters, and for people who like go aggressive with Sangans and Witches.
Yeah, and then we're back to critter format.
Yeah.
But
at least we have 2 Heavy Storm and 3 MST.
Yeah, and that does help out a lot. Like MST is super strong. It is kind of interesting though. I do feel like from Yugi Kaiba to Imperial, it's sort of like one block of the DM era, because Android just changes the pace of the game so much. Feels really different. I mean, you could exclude Yugi Kaiba there, because Yugi
I
Kaiba's kind
think
of the same
that
thing.
no, I actually exclude Critter if anything, because Yugi Kaiba, Treasure, and Imperial, almost all of their games are like relatively like mid pace. Like one game will take like 10 to 15 minutes, excluding like stall games,
Yeah, I was gonna
right?
say.
And like all of them are mainly using beatdown as like their meta, like the best deck, except for like Stallmail, which is like tied for best deck or is best deck, right? While Critter, the best deck isn't orienting around like, oh, here's my big Lajin, it hits over your whatever your monster is. is mainly like I'm gonna try to clear your board, clear your back row, and then get in for like a solid 900 or 1,000, and then rip a card or draw a card,
Yeah.
which I feel like is like completely different. And also like different decks like Exodia is viable there, Fusion's viable there, Burn is viable there, like different types of burns.
Yeah, but I think Treasure is sort of similar to Critter, honestly, because
Yeah,
like the main difference is the hand rips and MSTs, really. So that does make some decks from Critter less viable. For instance, Exodia and hand control.
Exodia,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Also, there's a addition of the first actual good ritual monster in Relinquished.
yeah. And Relinquished is a deck that in Treasure and Imperial has seen some play and has seen some success as well. So I think it's a
I mean,
solid deck.
I'm playing it right now, so
Oh, let's go. I almost put Relinquished in the thumbnail of this stream, but I was like, what if people don't get that spicy? I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad
I
you're repping it.
think that Relinquished is compared to Tomato Control, like it completely like destroys any sort of rogue deck. Because most of the time, Tomato Control, it doesn't have like much of a rebound per se. So like they use Solemn, so they mainly do interruptions, while like Relinquish can immediately rebound from like a fusion deck or something like that.
Yeah. And I agree 100%. I think it also helps that a lot of people are building to beat Tomato Control because that is the deck that, is most common. It makes sense because it's like basically putting all the good cards in the format into one deck, right? Like the generally good cards. Um,
Yeah.
and so a lot of decks are teched out to beat that, but they're not really teched out to beat Relinquish, and they're not really expecting that matchup. Um, so yeah, I think Relinquished is pretty well positioned in this meta. Welcome Blah to the stream. What was the result of your game?
I won.
Okay, cool. I'll put that in the thing.
Are you guys watching Dump Trucks match right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna be hopping into that right now. There we
Yeah,
go.
it's
What's
on
this?
game 3.
It's game 3. All right, because we're entering game 3 on Helion and PJ's match as well.
Yeah, and it's pretty intense. Like, game one went pretty quick, and it seems like both players are on some interesting stuff. Like Dump Truck is on main deck Time Seal. I'm not sure how much they're leaning into that, but given that they got that pretty early on in the first game of the match, and they seem to have already seen it in this game as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they're on like multiple Time Seals. And Soul is on Flying Kamakiri #1, which is kind of wild. I still haven't seen the end target for that.
Are
Um,
we? Are they playing
Probably only
Harpies? They
one
might be playing
for it.
Harpies.
That's what I'm
for that
thinking.
deck.
Like that's the only win target
Yeah.
I can think of. But they could also potentially
There's
just be on just general recruiters. They're just like,
Recruiters, yeah.
yeah,
Because
There's
Soul usually
flying
plays like 9
Kamakiri
recruiters.
#2 if it Rising Air Current, which is a simple wind beatdown deck, but that's unlikely.
yeah. I mean, it like wind. No matter what wind deck you're going to be playing, it's probably going to be some form of jank. So it's tough to like. You honestly don't know until you see it because, I sort of like in my head I rank them all like at a similar level because obviously some are like going to be better than the others, but like realistically, wind decks are underpowered compared to pretty much everything else in the format.
Yeah, wind is like probably one of the worst attributes until you get into like Link era where you have Tri Brigade and like Leerise and Harpies and then barrier statues
Yeah,
and stuff like
Harpies, the GX version of Harpies can be considered competitive.
yeah. Harpies also
That's
has
yeah,
Drag-
GX
wait,
version of Harpies is
Dragoonity's wind as well, yes.
competitive.
yeah.
Like
It's
Reaper's wind deck is competitive for sure.
Yeah, I'm actually playing that in the Reaper tournament going on right now. So we'll see how that does. But I managed to pilot it to a topping finish in a previous Reaper tournament. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be able to do it this time as well. But that should be fun. I'm excited to reach Reaper on this server as well. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have a question for
Yeah.
Reaper. Are you gonna do it without what's the new set name? It starts with S. I forgot.
Shadow of Infinity.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, are you gonna do it without it or with it?
I'm gonna follow the Reaper Discord.
Honestly,
Yeah, because
should
Format
probably
Library
do
fell in
both.
line with the Reaper Discord, so I'm just gonna follow what they're
Yeah,
doing
I
there.
think it's gonna be similar to like Chaos, where like some people like Cloudy say that traditional Chaos is the quote unquote like real Chaos.
Ooh.
Yeah.
other people are saying like, oh, well, without AST chaos, that's the real chaos.
Yeah.
So I think it'll probably just be like that.
Yeah, and we'll have a
Like-
thread in the Reaper channel for
Yes.
sure. That's like for the other one. If people do want to
Should-
play that version, just like how in the Reaper Discord they've got a channel for that. But
I
Yeah.
for
think
the
you should
official
cover
format,
both,
it's
honestly.
what?
I think you should cover both, honestly. That one with
Yeah.
elemental energy, just that has last will still restricted, so the
So,
format might just be different
in
enough.
in general, my plan for just like the format in general, if you're wondering what my coverage might look like for it, it will generally be after the GX era, it will generally be one format per ban list, unless there are already pre-established formats that different communities play that share a ban list, right? So for Cyber format, that shares a ban list with Goat, but it is listed on format library, so I'll play it, I'll experiment with it, and I'll give it a full showing. For something like the different forms of Reaper, those don't seem widely played. It seems like it's more people just playing the main version of Reaper and no one really playing the other version. So I'll touch on it briefly on my channel, but I'm not really going to give it a full like month, for instance, most likely. But that's my plan now, and of course, obviously, I'll be playing it by ear.
Okay,
And so yeah,
I'll be back at some point.
yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm mainly excited for because I'm if you watch me play like futuristic formats like 5Ds, almost every single format where hero beats remotely viable, I usually main it because I just like fusions. So I'm excited for when Miracle Fusion comes out, and then when I can actually play some like janky Miracle Fusion stuff.
Yeah,
But it's probably not gonna work out.
it won't, but I'm also excited for Heroes for a similar reason. Like I love the Hero Beat deck, in its many incarnations over the years. I just think it's really cool, because it's kind of like the first. I mean, I guess you could say the Cyber Dragons is the first version of that, but like it's the first like anime archetype that actually like does things and is like seriously competitive in some sense. Um, I can't really think of.
Yeah,
I guess
I think you
Blackwings
mean
technically you could count.
yeah, I think you mean like over a period. I understand, but like if we're talking about like format to format, the first actual real archetype that was appeared in the anime that did something in Yu-Gi-Oh was Gravekeepers in
Yeah,
Yada.
but it's kind of awkward because Gravekeepers appeared in didn't the deck itself appear in GX and not the original anime?
I think
Yeah.
yeah,
believe
I'm
so.
pretty sure it
Yeah.
appeared in GX.
Oh, also welcome Soul
Yeah.
to the stream. But
Oh, hello.
yeah. But yeah, and so like that's always kind of an awkward position, but that is true that like if you do count like a deck appearing at a point in the anime, that would be the first one that does it. It's just kind of weird in terms of like when it comes out in the anime.
Yeah. But in this sense as well, they sort of as well, I think with Gravekeepers too, they've had it to where like in a way it's also like it's also a bit of a deck that belongs to like both Merrick, Shizu, and Odeon as well. Like they have
Mm.
cards that were inspired, I think, by them in the archetype. Like say Priestess, I think, is a Shizu, Recruiter is Odeon, and I think Descendant is probably Merrick.
Yeah,
I
that
think
makes
at least
sense
for
to me.
Descendants definitely Merrick. You can like
Yeah.
see it. It has like the facial expressions of Merrick.
Yeah, like it's just Merrick before we knew about the other side of him. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean like Recruiter and Descendant, right? Those two like basically completely changed the Gravekeeper archetype to make it viable even in 5Ds.
Yeah.
Cause Descendant can obviously they just pop a bunch of stuff with Spy still being like really viable, and then you get Commandant as well, so you basically have 6 Necro Valleys in the deck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Steel and like
And you have Pot of Duality, which can
Yeah.
banish 3 and find 1 Necro, or Gravekeeper's Commandant.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't like Gravekeepers in later formats because they're like, oh, it's degenerate, it's stally, and then you just go into tributes and it's so annoying. I just think it's cool. I don't know. I'm a degenerate at heart.
I
So
I think
like
that
Gravekeepers
that's
too.
yeah. I mean, like I think it's mainly for GX era and DM era where it becomes like stalling and degenerate. While in like 5Ds, because I've been playing like Trishula format and I've been playing Gravekeepers like a little bit. It's like not stally at all. It's mainly just you have to stick your Necro Valley instead of getting trunated, and then you basically just have to keep getting recruiters out from Spy, and then use Descended to start popping everything. It's like more of an aggro deck, if anything.
Yeah, that's the thing about Gravekeepers I think no one really talks about as much, is that often how they're able to, win the game afterwards is they need to play on that aggressive front, in my opinion, at least because of like especially in combination with Necro Valley, they have like a lot of like 2K beaters. Uh, so it's definitely I think an aspect that gets overlooked.
Yeah, I also think that Necro Valley was probably like the first good field spell, of course, but like
Mm.
I feel like it like completely failed in its goal of like negating the graveyard. Cause literally over like half of the meta graveyard cards, like Treeborn Frog, Sinister Serpent, like even Two-Headed Behemoth can just like immediately bypass Necro Valley.
yeah,
That's
and
why they like created Soul Drain, and then they're like, wait, Soul Drain's way too broken, and then they automatically limited it.
yeah,
Well, I think part of it for that was also they just wanted to keep Dragon Rulers around more so with that hit, to
Yeah,
be
they
honest.
also want to keep
Yeah.
Dragon Rulers. They don't want to like absolutely crush Dragon Rulers from the meta. They want
yeah.
Dragon Rulers to still be like remotely
Despite what
viable at
the
least.
despite what the player base might have wanted at that time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we've got
Yeah.
we've got a question in the YouTube chat. Where's the April ban list? It's way past April 1st.
You're
Hopefully,
right.
hopefully it comes soon. Because I know that people aren't the biggest fan of Fire format. But I will be doing a reaction to the true ban list coming out whenever that comes out for when they hit all the hand rip cards and things like that.
Yeah, we'll probably have to like wait a few months, not for the ban list. We'll probably have to wait a few months for like Fire Format to actually end,
yeah,
because I don't think there's like anything that can even compete that well with Fire.
yeah. I
I
just find
think the Oh, I'm just gonna say that I think the potential, I think at least one potential option is, especially if they get the newer support, is maybe Yubel. I think because I know that's been a deck that seems to potentially been getting a lot better, especially with when
I
newer support for them comes out.
I
But
don't
yeah,
know. I always look at that sort of thing a bit leerily. Like I'm like, how much of this is like YouTube combo people like hyping up an anime archetype, and how much of it is like actually seriously like this deck can compete, right? Um,
I
I
think at least the new fusion that they revealed a while ago, like I think that definitely changes a lot for the deck. It
yeah,
really does like so much, in
but
my
part of
opinion.
the
But
issue
yeah.
with like Fire and part of why Fire is so resilient is because like the deck has so many good monsters, right? It's not just ending on one thing. It's like you have multiple points of interaction like throughout your opponent's turn, throughout your turn.
Yeah,
Um, so like a deck that is based around just bringing out like one card and just using that to control the game. That to me feels like a deck that won't be able to deal with Fire.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is also not just because of how Ubel is going to get the new support too. What I mean by that is not just like their own particular support, but like you have the Fiendsmith stuff as well, and that also like really helps out Ubel in a lot of ways too. Um, it gives them a lot more like disruptions and just a lot more like one card combo potential as well. So I think that
yeah.
that's another thing too.
I think like Fire King, like its best trait is being able to handle interactions, right? Way better than like probably most of the decks that are even like considered meta, because if you negate one thing, like even using like a lot of decks, if you get like ashed or even like F Veilered, they can't get like a stable board, right? Where then they can just get destroyed if they face the wrong cards. But like Fire King, there's so many points of interaction that you don't know what to negate because you don't know what your opponent has.
Yeah.
So it just
I,
like handles interactions really well.
yeah, and I personally like that sort of that the decks sort of have tended that way. Like CS asked in the YouTube chat, like, do you think the card design in the last 5 years has
Oh,
gotten out of hand? I like the Fire King philosophy that
Alright,
Food just.
I gotta
Oh
go.
yeah. Good luck in your match.
Thank you.
I like that sort of design philosophy more than the design philosophy that I'd seen like a couple formats prior, like before sprites and tiers and all that stuff was, meta. Like I noticed that like a lot of decks were just tending towards like either setting up a scythe lock or just setting up a bunch of omni negates and just saying like get through my negates, right? And that to me was just sort of like a samey style of gameplay, a more boring style of gameplay than a deck like Fighter, which, does have a lot of interesting things going on with it, but it also does that uniquely, right? Like the fact that it's using its own destructions to fuel other things, like feels on point for what the general theme of the deck is and what it's trying to do. And I think that's really cool. And yeah, as C Spirit says, less negates, more targeting, and more destruction. And I think that is the way that I like the game to tend to. Now, in terms of power level, it's definitely very, very powerful. I don't play the current format really, so I can't really speak to how it feels to be on the other end of that power. But from like a theoretical point of view, just looking at what these decks are trying to do, it appeals to me watching. And I am looking forward to playing these formats in like 50 years.
Yeah, no, I think though, like to me actually, I maybe this is just sort of how I saw it at the time. I would say like the format before like spray and tier, I don't know, I thought it was actually a lot more interesting than I think people gave it credit for. And mainly just because I think before, and this is like I think after we got the branded structure deck.
Mm.
Because I think beforehand there was going to be I feel like what was going to happen before it seemed like the adventure engine was basically being played in like a bunch of different decks. But I think with branded's like power and like what it was able to do, I think like that at least lessened that, and I think people like were being more considering of like, yeah, the Avenger is still there, but there was just I think a little bit more play that I think happened once Branded came about. I think in the format, I think it helped um for to make it a little bit better, at least to me. I didn't mind that format at all as
Yeah,
much.
and
Yeah,
and also it's always good to know like you always see a ton of like negativity surrounding whatever the current format is, where people are like, these are the problems with the current format. And oh, I can't believe the current format, these decks are running around like these decks are so unfun, blah blah blah. And that's always going to be in the waters, right? Because first of all, negativity gets more clicks. So if you see people saying that, that's going to be a more popular video than a video saying, wow, this format's great. But also, like I'm not saying that everyone out there is acting on bad faith, because they aren't, because
yeah,
it is important to point out flaws in a format, because then maybe Konami or just people in general will see those flaws and be like, well, okay, how do we fix those flaws? And then that gets them potentially looking for solutions to how to fix those sorts of things, right? So I do think that
yeah,
it makes sense that they're going to be more negative like that. But I also think that like it's nice, because going back to these old formats like this, right? Like if we were in Imperial format currently, right, and people were discussing like, oh, I can't believe that like Mechanical Chaser is so dominant and like Jinzo is so dominant. Like I don't like that, right? That's a reasonable
yeah.
complaint for the format, but also, it's you don't have to play the format if you don't like it. The people playing Imperial are the ones who enjoy it, and so it's like you can enjoy the formats more because you're choosing to play them, is the way that I sort of view it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think part of my main issue only with like how sometimes it seems like to me it felt like a while like every format felt like somebody was complaining about something, which is fair. I think there if it's fine, but I feel like sometimes it can feel a bit contradictory when
Yeah.
it's like it seems like somebody's trying to find a way to complain for the sake of doing so. And like to me, like even with the formats maybe not being maybe there were certain formats that were as like great, like obviously there was a time like I feel like Cashtira format seemed like the biggest format people were hating on, and I'm like,
Mm,
yeah, the deck was good and it was definitely respectable, and I can understand eventually because the deck was very popular and it definitely would have to eventually go. But
mm,
I guess maybe this is my thing and why maybe I don't know, I think to me like the context for it too is like, well, this was right after like tier was like literally tier zero, and at least in Cashtira format, I felt like there were at least other decks able to compete, even if they weren't always like the most dominant. I just think it just shows that, like, at least to me, it felt like Cashtira in a way was just a lot easier to deal with, in my opinion, compared to Tier Element.
yeah.
But I can definitely understand wanting to eventually like it's that good eventually, or like being as popular as it was.
Yeah.
It was going to eventually get hit and all that. But yeah.
And I also think there are things to be said about like the way in which certain decks win. Like a lot of people didn't like Kashtira because the way that it won was unfun to them, right? Like
Yeah.
like, and I get that, right? I think that's a reasonable complaint, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for instance, like, in the chat, C-Spare is saying Imperial Order is broken, fix the game, Konami. I agree with that complaint about the TF era, actually. I think Imperial Order is like the one card,
Yeah.
like the other power cards, I'm like, okay, it can be a bit sacky at times, but oftentimes there are ways to play around it. There are things you can do. Imperial Order just like shuts down the game if you don't have MST in your hand. And so it's just kind of like, you got to draw the answer, you lose, right? A lot of the time. It doesn't always work out that way. There are some things to do, even if you get IO'd like right away. But it is just such a powerful card. It's so brutal. So, and you could kind of view that as, sort of like, and as I say that, Imperial Order gets fired here. You can kind of view that as, in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, if you play against a certain deck and you don't have the hand traps to stop what they're doing, right? Like, can view that in a similar way. And it shows that the game is just like, it's sort of cyclical in nature, right? You're gonna
like there's definitely gonna be cards that are gonna have a very like draw the out type of I don't know, like I don't know, just the draw the out like game is gonna happen with those.
Yeah. And even those cards, like, people are going to have different opinions on them. Like Rain Dance says, and I'm not sure if Rain Dance is being like sarcastic here, or if they're actually believing it, but Rain Dance says Imperial Order is a fair and balanced card, and I would believe people actually believing that. Like, I personally don't view it as, I'd like, I'm a bit of a sack defender, but even I can't really, stick my neck out for Imperial Order, because I do think Imperial Order is like a bit problematic, personally.
Yeah, I think
But
like my main thing with it more so is just that the interesting aspect of it more so to me comes from just like there's like the debate sometimes like do you play like say Heavy Storm in this format because of Imperial Order
yeah,
as much
or
and
even
like
Dust Tornado.
because Dust Tornado I think there's more of a reason to be honest to main that over Heavy in my opinion, but MST for sure is like at least it's more immediate.
Yeah.
Like Dust Tornado.
Oh boy. Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just
Mirror. But yeah, no, that's a big mirror force for sure. And
yeah.
like and oh wow.
Yeah, so
That
there are
was
2 Sangan triggers on History Watch 1 part, but Dump Truck also gets a Sangan trigger.
yeah.
Also,
No. I think it was like, oh wait, it is, yeah, you're right.
yeah,
You're right.
in general, like, chat, any watchers out there, we do go on tangents in the local commentary and stuff, and I do enjoy that. And I think that you guys enjoy it too. But like, if you don't enjoy it, if you do want more commentary on the game itself, like we are watching the games as well, let us know in the chat too. So y'all are the ones guiding the stream, however we want it. So I just never know, like, if y'all are on board with the tangents that we do, or if you'd rather have more game commentary. But just let us know. Okay, it was sarcasm on Rain's part. That's what I figured. But
Yeah.
I could see people believing that IO is fair and balanced.
Yeah. No, that's why like I was saying that to me, I think that's where potentially like say a back row deck has somewhat of an advantage game one is because say if people are only running like the 3 MST, you're a lot more it's a lot easier then to just set more back row in the face of that because heavy is being more used in the side. Or sorts. Or like I don't know, like I think it is a risk still either way, but I often think like I don't know. I sometimes think like back row decks do have more of a shot than I think people realize. It's just how you build them, I would say too. But
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I think that's a very good point to it. Like, there are dynamics to every card, even a degenerate card like IO. And I think that is something that, as people play more, like, that's part of why I'm a sack defender, because I'm like, well, most cards, even if they are sacks, you can sort of play around in some way, right? Like, Yu-Gi-Oh is a game of variance. There's always going to be, the godly hands that your opponent has that you can't do anything against. But I think a lot of the time, if you look back on your games, it's like, well, I could have done differently this thing here, and maybe that would have protected me against the chance that my opponent had this. And also there's things about like,
Yeah.
deck building. Like some games are won or lost in the deck build screen. And, as you said, if you play more of a back row deck, that could potentially have advantages in certain games versus others. So that's something that you can consider as well.
Yeah, I think like I remember back then, I think I made a comment about I think the dynamic I'm not really a fan of with IO more so also involves with Jinzo because you have that
Mm,
IO versus Jinzo conundrum where it's like do you play around the IO or do you play around Jinzo at least from a deck building perspective too.
yeah.
Whereas like how many traps do you play around IO, but how many like spells and monsters do you play to have some outs to Jinzo as well? I think that's the other thing too. It's like Jinzo definitely is a little bit harder to get out, but like I think like with Jinzo too, it's also like affected gameplay, like the deck building as well,
Yeah.
because like sometimes like at least to me, I'll say this like I definitely have not been really as much of a believer in trap hole as I was in the previous formats, even though I think it's still okay. Um, but I think Jinzo's presence has sort of put it in a little hamper on that, but I think it's still okay. Like, see here,
Yeah,
obviously.
exactly. Yeah. And I do
Yeah.
think like it's really interesting, and this is like, there's only so much we can do in exploring these formats, if they're not getting consistent tournaments or things like that, or consistent people playing them. Because I do think that like just looking at these formats like this and exploring on a surface level, you can sort of get an idea of what the general metagame is like what decks could potentially do well in tournaments and things like that. But then if you want to dive into the nitty gritties of like, okay, specific tech cards that you can use here or there, that will pop up like Trap Hole, and like what is Trap Hole's place in the Imperial metagame, then I think you get into some interesting discussions. Because if, for instance, there's a deck, the tournament where like a bunch of people bring Relinquished, right? Trap Hole is obviously less good against Relinquish because Relinquish special summons, and like even if you Trap Hole like a Senju or a Sonic Bird, they still get the value off that, right? So like you're basically trap holing like a Sangan or a Witch almost. And so like there are definitely metas where it's not the right choice to bring trap hole to a tournament. But if you see people on a deck like Ratbox where they're playing giant rats and Mystic Tomatoes, then maybe it's better to bring in trap holes. It's the sort of thing that comes with like actually having regular tournaments and being able to make those meta calls. And unfortunately, we can't really do that as much here, at least on this server. There are now more tournaments in a lot of these old retro formats, which is really cool. We've got Fiber Monthlies now, which is awesome. We're seeing more regular like UE Kaiba tournaments, Critter tournaments happening soon. There's potentially going to
Yeah.
be a Joey Pegasus tournament coming at some point in the future, maybe. If
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It- yeah. I can speak on like I sort of was the one that has been interested in trying to get that to happen. Like I asked Ellie Tinkan, who's the admin of the Joey Pegasus server, to at least like try to set up like some channels and everything and be a mod there. I think they need to still discuss some stuff with Jazz about setting up Retrobot because I think that's the main thing that I would want is just let's have Retrobot be set up. It'll be just a lot easier than just having I don't know, just doing it manually, I would say. I think especially just to keep it very consistent of sorts, but I think like there is potential in my opinion. I think like you said that format is very underexplored and I think it'd be interesting just to take it as it is. I think there's with that format, there's comparisons to like other DM formats, like say Android or so. But I think what's important is to, I think that maybe this is how I am. Sometimes you just take the format as it is sometimes,
yeah.
and that's
And I think
what you
that's
need to do.
I think that's the key to enjoying any format. And also like I do think that it becomes easier if you play a variety of formats. Like I feel like oftentimes people get too locked into this mindset where they're like, "Oh, I like GOAT. I gotta be GOAT's champion, right? I gotta be like, oh, you can't play any format but GOAT because GOAT is the best." Or more recently with Edison,
Yeah.
people have been doing that. Or with Tengu Plant or whatever. And I'm sort of in the boat like, why don't you just enjoy them all? Like enjoy what you want to enjoy, right? And I think that if you have that mindset, it does become easier to sort of enjoy whatever format you're playing, right? Joey Pegasus or Imperial, as we're seeing here, or whatever you have. So I think that's the best
Yeah.
way to view it. Anyway, I've been neglecting the chat, so I want to just mention some of the things here because, first of all, C Spare
No
has a
worries.
very interesting hot take, which I do actually agree with, where they say eroded IO would have been worked better in DM than it did when they brought it back. And I think that's actually a very good point. I think that's true. And
Yeah.
I think it would make IO a much fairer card because the idea is that like you can't commit to IO until you're pretty certain that you don't need your spells either. And that you can actually
Mhm.
end the game without the 700 life point clock killing you. So I think that would make it
Yeah.
really interesting. So 100% C spare.
Like, I think part of that even then, I think maybe this is why it was errata like that too. I think maybe this was just how Konami was doing these erratas at the time, was more so basing it on what was it like at that time and then fixing it to be, to make sense for that time, but not thinking about the game now. I feel like as much for some of the older ones, whether it's making them stronger or making them like weaker, but to the point they're not really that same card anymore, or making them a little bit weaker, but they're still really strong in the current format.
yeah.
Or I don't know, but yeah.
So it would be really cool. And yeah, and I'm not the biggest fan of erratas, but I do get why Konami does it. I have sympathy for them in that. But yeah, it's I think that would potentially be an alt format if someone wants to experiment with it, just like playing with the erratas as they are
Yeah, for
now.
sure.
But I'm generally not the biggest fan of that sort of thing. But also CS says they think the first tier 0 format in the game was definitely Exodia in 1999 in the OCG. I would believe that. I'm not the biggest expert on the OCG, but that's the
Hello.
first tier 0 format that I know of. And yeah,
Yo.
Blah here is more of someone who knows about the OCG. So would you agree with that statement that the first tier 0 format is Exodia?
With decks that exist that you can actually play instead of like this one amorphous deck of standard good stuff cards, yes.
Okay. So yeah, that is yes, you've got another supporter in your corner there. But yeah. But
Interesting.
luckily
I
Imperial is not a tier 0 format as we're seeing here because we're seeing Relinquished face off against PJ Darkness. Looks like they're on a little bit more of a standard build, but they are playing the Time Seal and the Mask Sorcerer, so definitely some spicy
Yeah,
stuff going on there.
got a
Uh,
mass control element for sure.
Yeah. Also Upstart Goblin too. So Upstart Goblin very interesting because it does give like I was talking about this earlier. Like later Yu-Gi-Oh theory is that you should play triple Upstart Goblin in almost every deck because it's just such a consistency booster. And for a lot of the decks of the time, they did want that consistency. But DM era, it's a little bit different. The pace of play is a bit different, and life points matter a little bit more. So it is kind of interesting to see it being experimented with here. I think there's no real consensus on how good Upstart is in this format or not, and whether decks should play it.
Yeah,
yeah,
like I think the
Upstart.
most. Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry. Upstart is definitely playable in something like Exodia or Empty Jar.
Yes.
But in my opinion, like a standard list, those life points do matter.
Yeah, I
As
mean
you
that's the
saw in
interesting thing here
yeah,
because like of course if you're playing alt WinCon, you don't care about the life points. So the draw is really good.
yes.
But if you are playing a standard list like that's trying to beat down your opponent, it does become a bit more of an interesting question. So I am curious to see if you'll experiment with it more. Will it be something they like to keep? Will it be something that they don't? It is definitely a tricky card to evaluate though, because oftentimes in the games that you see it, it isn't the most impactful thing. So it's tough to like judge like, okay, is this card actually doing something for my deck here? Or is it actually detrimental because I'm giving my opponent more life? Uh, it
Yeah,
is
I
it
think
is
like
tough.
maybe another. Yeah, no, I think another deck to consider maybe Upstart Goblin for is maybe like say if it's more revolving around Magician of Faith and
Mm,
like trying to like use Magician of Faith as much as it can. You can have that be more as a consistency card. I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
funnily enough, that gets like I like say magical hats that could take the most advantage of it because you can flip the faith down as well in the battle phase
oh,
too.
is Hack
So
Control maybe
Look,
coming back for the tournament?
yeah,
Ooh,
maybe,
yeah.
maybe I don't know. I really do love that deck. Honestly, I think that deck is still. I don't know. I
It,
wish I hope other people someday we'll give it a shot. But
I definitely
yeah.
think it's one of the coolest decks that we've discovered. So kudos to you for like pioneering that and actually coming up with the concept. Because I don't really think it
Yeah.
was around at the time, and it's just a very neat idea. It feels
It
like
might have
using
been.
a lot of modern
It's
theory.
yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
to say.
Well, that's why I said I don't
Considering,
think.
yeah,
But it definitely
Yeah.
wasn't really experimented with to the same extent or used in the same way because like realistically people did not have that level of like theoretical knowledge of the game back then.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a fact of the game. And it's why when you look back at a lot of historical deck lists, oftentimes you're just like, ooh, what were they cooking here? Like this is not good, right? Why are they playing this? Why are they playing that? It's not because they knew some secret wisdom that is lost to us now. It's often because that was what they had access to. That was what, like, at this point in the game's history, most of the people playing it were children or teenagers, right? Like,
Yeah.
there were adults playing it, like, and I think that yeah, I mean now there are definitely a lot more adults playing it too because a lot of the kids who played it back then grew up and still play it now. But because there were more younger people playing it, and there wasn't really I mean, it still was competitive back then, but there wasn't like the people with the knowledge to really, apply theoretical analysis to the game and be like, well, okay, what is the actual uh, theoretical way I should construct my deck? What cards are actually good? Like card advantage was not really like in terms of like how we just automatically say like, oh, pottery that's a +1, right? Like if you said that in a card shop way back when, maybe some people would get it, but a lot of people would just look at you like with a confused look.
a lot of
So
kids,
Yeah.
yes, but
But
it's
like
not
I
as if it didn't exist.
the what didn't exist?
A major example of this, like Hawaii, even before the TCG came out, had an OCG scene. Still did, even in 2003, because of the connection to Japan and the Japanese community there. People there already knew what they were doing.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is like in terms of like
sure.
knowing the
Yeah.
I know
theory.
what you're
I'm not
saying.
talking about like just knowing the game itself. I'm talking about like
Yeah, they knew
knowing
the
the theory,
game,
but
they understood how it worked, and then there were other pockets of that even before 2002. It just a lot of people came in who did not know what they were doing. Like this is actually the first
well,
format where
I
you
don't know.
start to
I have not
see.
really seen like theoretical deck. I have not seen like deck lists from this time period that are actually like good. Like I don't know. That
Super
seems
good.
harsh, but
Yes.
like you look at like maybe there's like one or two, but like the vast majority that I've seen are just really bad. And the one or two that I have seen, it's like pretty standard stuff in terms of like, well, okay, this doesn't really take much theory to actually construct. So like that's
I
what
guess
Yeah.
this is also like barring the fact that they couldn't probably get Mechanical
yeah,
Chaser at the
exactly.
time too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Even with
you
that handicap
see
as well.
the New Age beatdown deck is basically Beast Spellcaster. Just replace the three normal beaters with Kaiku, Bazoo, and Gemini Elf. The triad,
That's
basically. Like
the
Lajin,
trio of beaters
7 colored
changed the
fish,
decks
and
dramatically in Android format. I would not actually compare the beatdown decks in this format with the
in
beatdown
structure.
decks in
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 the classic version,
no, the structure is
very
also
similar.
very like are you talking about the version that they played way back when, or are you talking about the
Yes,
version
of course I am.
Okay, so if the version that they played way back when, if the structure was similar to how they played it in this format, then I'd say that that just shows that again they didn't really have the theory that we have now. Because nowadays the way that people construct Beast Spellcaster is very different from how they construct Beatdown in this format. Because a lot changes when you have access to three powerful beaters that have a triangle relationship with each other. That does change a lot about how you build the deck and what you're trying to do. In this format, the only real beater that you have besides Jinzo, which is a tribute monster and thus sort of fills a different spot in the deck, is Mechanical Chaser. And that makes things like the recruiters, like Tomato and stuff, it serves a slightly different role in the decks than they do in Android. So
It's more standard, I guess. I think it's part of it too, is just because as well, like when it comes to the beaters that have drawbacks, it seems like there hasn't been like just not as much respect given to them. But I
yeah.
think they can still actually have a place. Like I think
Oh,
Gumo
I'm
and
not saying
even
they
Elf.
can't have a place.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if we're
Yeah.
talking about the standard build that people are playing here.
But yeah.
Oh, the audio's low. Whose audio is low? Amart, is it my audio? Is it the other people in the call's audio?
Blah 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 blah.
Okay. I'll need to see what's being heard just for.
Eh?
Yeah. I don't know if CS saying blah is in response to blah saying blah 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 blah, or if it's in response to blah's audio is low.
Yeah,
Testing.
But I can try adjusting things.
Testing.
It seems okay though. Like at least I like just check
Yeah,
with stream. And it
blah's
seems fine.
volume is already pretty high on Discord, so
Yeah.
all
Okay,
of it is
I
low.
just
Okay, it might just
switched
be
it.
it might just be on your end then. I don't know. If everyone, yeah, it might just be that you've got the volume a little bit low. I don't know. Other people in the chat, let us know. Or if you're watching this
Yeah, for
after the
sure.
fact, let us know down in the comments below. But yeah, I can also watch the stream after just to check as well. But yeah.
Look, that doesn't. Ooh, I just.
Welcome back, Hillian.
Oh, hi, Hillian.
Yeah, welcome.
Oh,
Dust Tornado here,
Ian,
hitting a song.
yeah, that's right now I'm just watching over the semifinal match. I'm glad I got to join for a second time. It's a shame that my second time joining I also lost the first round, but hey, you
Yeah.
know what? I'm still learning this
Exactly.
format. I don't
No worries. Like we were both in it this time. I sadly my Harpy deck did not get to go farther. But yeah.
Yeah.
Harpy deck, you
I
know,
got
that's just
messed
like
up
I
by
was
my
playing
own
Alon
deck.
too.
Just
Ooh.
both
Damn.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know,
Monsters,
I
for the
think
most
you're
part.
going at it with a good attitude, Hylian, where it's like there's still stuff to learn, and even the people who've played this format like, you know, a bunch, there's still more to learn, right? There's always more to learn whenever
Well,
you
yeah,
go
what
into a game, and I think that's a really good attitude to have with it. Even if you lose, like that's a learning opportunity there, and so that's the way to not lose again, and so hopefully you'll be able to join in the future locals as well to you know, hopefully have a better run.
yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
all just a matter of just practicing it and just playing more and you know, it's I think it says a lot that with Imperial format, I was trying to Google and you know just look around the I was trying to research like, all right, cool, what's a good deck for Imperial? And then the first thing I saw was this is a very unmined format. This is a format that does not have much to it yet.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of just like skipped over. So
Yeah,
we're
at
playing a
least
format that we don't know the meta yet. All we know is tomato control.
Yep. We're kind of
There's also some
pioneers.
other stuff too,
or
but
this
like
standard.
but definitely yeah, but definitely like I think tomato control or standard is probably the highest like thing that people are playing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I looked at
Yeah.
a few all the events I could see, it was just tomato control won first and second.
Well, I won with, or I didn't win, but I got second with Relinquish, so that's something. But yeah, no, most of
Yeah.
the people do play tomato control because again, as you say, it's very underexplored, and you know, sort of the baseline needs to be set before people figure out how to get around those sorts of things. But I do think Relinquish has good odds. I mean, Riot Driver is on Relinquish here, so we'll see if they manage to make it to the next round. But
Yeah.
yeah. And Raynam said audio all okay for me, so hopefully the audio is okay in general. But I'll definitely be checking after the stream as well, Amart, and hopefully that will, if there is an issue, hopefully I'll be able to resolve it for the next stream. But yeah, it is kind of ironic, yes, about the way that the hand rips are viewed in the TCG versus the OCG. But it really does come down to the Exodia format that you mentioned. Hand rips being able to stop Exodia is very nice, and I think honestly, like one of the reasons why I like Treasure format. Oh, the Fiend Mega Cyber actually showing off its tech here. It's Cyber Dragon at home before Cyber Dragon even existed. So cool stuff.
We have Cyber Dragon at home. We don't need Cyber Dragon.
Exactly. And this guy, it has 100 more attack. So, like, you know, it's even better than Cyber Dragon.
Yeah, no, to be honest, there's I think a reason back when I was like in doing the format where it's like, you know, maybe Fiend actually is okay. And I think part of it was because like just not being able to take up your normal summon, and when you're in board states like this, then it's like I think that's where it really shines, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I'm going to head back on out. I wanted to jump in real quick to say hi and thanks for hosting, and I will be watching the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, pleasure having you.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I hope that you're able to join more in the future.
See you later.
Oh yeah, I still be joining the tournaments when I can because those give me multiple days.
Yeah, the multi-days are very
Yeah, of
nice.
course.
Yeah, I generally prefer the multi-days as well, but it's good to offer both. So, and these are fun too. So, I'm just glad that people enjoy them.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
And on that note, good luck, duelists.
Yeah, and this is an
Yeah.
intense game here. Definitely could go either way. I mean, if you look at the board, like PJ Darkness had a lot more cards on board, but Riot Drago has like 6 cards in hand, so they've got a lot of options here. And in a relinquished deck, you do have a couple options, and they're gonna do a big thing here. So
Yeah.
they probably do have a play going on. No Senju or Sonic Birds yet, which is kind of wild, but that does happen sometimes.
I was gonna say, yeah, like back to the point of the hand.
Now
build,
Sonic
like,
Bird comes down, and that will add a spell. So it looks like Rider might be going for a ritual play this turn, or they're just going to do the passive play and hit over the Sangan. I think either is acceptable. Oh, Premat. But there's the MST. Okay, that. Oh,
Solemn Judgment. Ooh.
that is brutal.
Goodness.
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty good. One of the other benefits of Solemn, I guess, is that it can stop the
Yeah.
MSTs, and then it's like, how do you deal with IO, right?
Yep, the IO Solemn combo.
Yeah, and that's rough because now the ritual part of the deck is shut off. Now PJ can only hold that up for 4 turns, but with Fiend Mega Cyber hidden in here, and now Cannon Soldier coming down as well, might not matter. The end of the game might
Yeah.
be soon.
Yeah, and it seems like, well, there is a couple of back row potentially that Raga Drago can have. That could get back.
is the only thing that saves Drago right now.
Well,
Well,
Jinzo's
that
hard to
too.
put up because you're gonna lose a monster here. So how do you get Jinzo out? You know?
Yeah, that's where it's like you need like the Mirror Force or I don't know, Wabaku could be also a way too to help
Yeah.
you out in that.
Okay, it looks like they're gonna
as
take the
well.
8 and then take the 14.
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of rough, but yeah, it's a tough spot. PJ's in a commanding position, but they are bleeding out life points every turn. So if Rider
Yeah.
can draw an out that gets around IO, then they are in a good spot. But it is tough.
Yeah. We haven't seen either Jars also been used yet, though.
Yeah,
Too.
and Jar would be pretty good here. They're gonna do another big thing, so they clearly have something they can do if they do want to get aggressive. But it's just gonna be tough because if you normal summon a card here and PJ has Solemn, then that could potentially be the end of the game. Because then next turn, this is the clock right here, 3600. Why did they take 2 from that? Saber is the Mega Cyber. Yep, that's correct. Yep, they took 600 instead of 800.
My favorite X Saber, the Mega X.
Oh, give and take is
Quite a
at
few
$20.
people in the watchers
Oof.
chat.
Yeah, the market is rough.
What? Wait, what's
Yeah,
the
according to
give and-
CS,
I guess
yeah, give and take is $20. Give and take, I think that's the trap, right? That like gives
Yeah.
your opponent a synchro or something.
No, you give them like your opponent any monster. It's like you discard a card, I think, and then you
Hmm.
special monster to your opponent's field.
Oh,
I
interesting.
don't know why I don't know why it's at 20.
From the
Oh,
it's
because
graveyard.
there's a new gimmick puppet lock apparently.
Yeah,
Oh,
from
yeah.
the graveyard.
But I get that then, but it's like I don't even think you need that. Like, say if you're playing actual like gimmick puppets with new support, it seems like they're gonna be fine.
But the
without
market's gonna
that.
hype up what it hypes up, you know. So and now
Yeah.
the IO drops, and that is going to be very scary for Rago here. Especially when a
Ooh.
knock comes down, banishing that Sangan. Now if they do survive this turn, then they are in a good spot. But if they take it,
no.
damn, this is probably the
This
end of the
would-
game here. Yeah, they're taking
Yeah.
that, so that's the end of the game. No ways to negate a cannon here. Yeah, just heavy Black Loot Ritual and Duo. Yeah, all those
Yeah.
spells. And yeah, they had Reborn as well, but wasn't enough. So brutal stuff. Yeah, tough stuff. But IO just that's why the format's named
Magic-
Imperial. Magic Train is kind of funny.
Oh.
Magic Train I honestly prefer Jammer to it because oftentimes the relinquished deck will have spells in hand and they're okay discarding those. But yeah, it's that was rough. Showed the power of IO there, and now we've got PJ versus Dump Truck here. for the finals.
Yeah.
Intense stuff. Both of them are playing
Actually-
similar decks relatively.
Let's see. Has PJ? Let's see. What's PJ's records? Wait, PJ hasn't won.
Oh, really? I thought they'd won at least
locals,
one
yeah.
locals. Okay, so
No,
this might be their first. It could very well be their first.
Yeah.
And if so,
Basically-
congratulations to them. But
Yeah.
Trying to deny.
yeah, Dump Truck is a very
Dump
powerful
Truck the
player.
tie with
Huh?
Eratos.
Yeah. I want to let's get PJ on the board. I hope so though. But to be fair, I think Dump Truck Tech is definitely going to still be pretty good. And
Oh yeah, they're
from what I saw of it, there's going to be some interesting techs.
they're very powerful
let's
duelists.
say
And
that.
yeah, as Raindan said, IO is fair and balanced. The proof is in the pudding there.
Yeah.
But
Goodness. All right.
there it is. Dump Truck versus PJ. Diving in. Oh, intense. Let us know in chat who you think's going to win. I should try and set up a poll to but maybe I'll do that next
that would
time.
be pretty good.
Yeah. We've only got 3 viewers right now, so I think the
see
poll will
7.
not be the most exciting thing in the world. But Upstart coming down here. And now Dump's at 9,000. Just normal Sun Sangan playing around the Nox because we have seen a bunch of main deck Nox here.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be pretty good for PJ here. 7-2, passing back. Oh, pot, yeah. I was going to say, I do have the read that PJ doesn't have IO in the back row because if they had IO, they probably would have set the Sangan because they don't really care about playing around Nock as much. There is the chance that Dump Truck had Nock and MST in hand. But I feel like, it's still reasonable to set in that case. But Duo coming down as well, hitting a Faith. That's going to be a very powerful card there. And yeah, because the Faith could have gotten back Greed, could have gotten back a lot of stuff. Discarding a Trapple as well.
Yeah.
So I think the Trapple in hand sort of indicates a little bit about the sets. They could either be chainables that they're trying to bait a heavy storm out of, or there could already be a trap hole set on field. Oh, that's going to be a good Sangan attack. Bug eating up the Sangan. And yeah.
Bends the deck just a bit more.
Old man says no. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but
Solemn.
Oh, yeah,
probably.
Yeah, Solemn is definitely going in. Yeah.
And also IO too. They're pretty old.
Yeah, 2 old
Both of
men,
them. Of course. Yeah.
Now, is Nock a man or a woman? I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, right? Like, they might not be either, because these are just card arts. So who really knows?
Yeah.
But
I think no,
Ooh.
that card has shown up in a few different places. The Nock character.
yeah,
I don't know if it, has
they
it
could
ever
be
been
they could be
Monster?
non-binary as well. So
Yeah. True.
It's a
But,
man,
like-
probably for sure.
it's a what?
Japan. It's probably a man for sure. Japan.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, Japan is as I don't know. They also center a variety of women and a variety of properties. Never underestimate
Yes.
the power of waifus. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, to be fair, I feel like there was I think an interesting there was I feel like there was a time where people weren't sure about Blackluster Soldier. If Blackluster Soldier was male or female or whatever, but yeah.
Androgynous.
Yeah.
But I do think that
Like I said,
androgynous
Japan.
cards are
We-
good design in general. It makes it more appealing to people of any gender.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
yeah, because it's you can imagine yourself. I mean, I'm not sure how many people out there play Yu-Gi-Oh and imagine themselves as Nobleman of Crossout,
Ooh.
but you can
Well, maybe. You
Yeah.
never know.
yeah, exactly,
Doc
and
could
it's
be
just
your
like
cards.
letting anyone sort of imagine themselves as the Nock.
Yeah.
is-
I could see people being
or-
yo, I love I want to be marauding captain,
Yeah.
Because of Rhoda.
Yeah. Although it's a lot
Actu-
harder to do that with skin color and things like that, but they've got the
Yeah.
gender on it. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Put it this way. If the apostle was a woman, we would know.
why?
We'd just stare at the chest.
I mean, it's wearing a
I
breastplate.
don't know.
Yes, but Kanan the sword mistress is also wearing a breastplate.
Yeah, but I'm just saying they're different. They're you can't
It
really
still
judge
depends on
them.
how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then yeah, I feel like discussing the different bus sides of Yu-Gi-Oh cards is not the
Yo,
best
card art.
not the
It's
best
not.
discussion for a stream. So
Yeah,
let's
look,
No.
if we're
talk
gonna
about the game
yeah,
itself.
like if we're
That-
gonna talk about card arts right now, we gotta get PJ, back for that because
Also,
PJ
we
is a
got
big artist,
the age-old debate of OCG versus TCG Tomato. I'm always a fan of the TCG Tomato personally, but
Yeah.
the OCG Tomato, I don't know, it just doesn't look like a tomato to me. It looks like a pumpkin.
Yeah, no, as someone that I like both of them personally. I will say that. I think both of them are really interesting because, I usually just tend to go OCG because I sort of like to make it a point of I like to show off the OCG art because I think it's cool to show it off.
Yeah, it is cool.
But I like both. Yeah, but I do like both. Like you said, I like the tomato lantern vibes of OCG. And I think with the Mystic Tomato one, that definitely feels like it's very classic 90s horror.
Yeah.
For
and if
for
I
that one
if
too.
I picked up a tomato and looking back at me was the face of the TCG Tomato or the OCG Tomato, I would be much more terrified if I picked up the TCG Tomato. I'd be horrified. Whereas the OCG Tomato, I'd just be
for
like,
sure.
it's something. But
Yeah, no, I do find it funny because I think that's probably why it's funny because they're probably the reason for censoring it more so came down
oh,
because
that's
it was
exact. Oh no, it's
featuring
not exact game.
Halloween.
Sorry,
But yeah,
I just thought that was exact game for a second because I didn't realize the Tan
yeah,
Soldier had already attacked.
yeah. I guess they didn't want to directly reference Halloween or whatever because of religious reasons or something. But
Yeah,
they just end up making a more terrifying card, and realistically, there's so many other monsters that technically signifies Halloween. You have fiends, you have your zombies. I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh and Halloween are sort of a bit connected. So I feel like
yeah.
it wasn't really the intended censorship really didn't make sense, but
We got to get all the
yeah,
kids to dress up as Manny or Bug for Halloween this year.
yeah,
But
yeah. No, Jinzo would Jinzo
oh,
for real
Jinzo,
though.
yeah, Jinzo goes. I've seen people cosplaying Jinzo. Jinzo's
Yeah,
always cool in cosplay. But
yeah, Jinzo's really good.
I will say on the topic of TCG and OCG art, one of the nice things about having access to both on DB is that if you do want to test out certain ratios, if you're I mean, not in this format. I feel like 3 tomatoes is correct for this format. But
Mhm.
if you are well, what if I want to drop down to 2? Then you could potentially put in 2 TCG art tomatoes, 1 OCG art tomato, or vice versa. And then whenever you draw the odd one out, then you could be like, well, okay, what other card am I considering in this slot? And is it better? Do I want to see this tomato right now, or would I have wanted to see a different card, right? So that's one way to test out different ratios. That is, I'm pretty sure that's
That is a really cool trick. Yeah.
yeah, that's a trick that I've seen people do in Magic the Gathering a bunch, where there are so many different alt arts for lands that if you're testing out land ratios in your deck, then you can put in an alt art land for that and be like, oh, dude, did I want is it is this amount of lands good in my deck or not?
Yeah, now when you're going back to your nice teledef or you can figure out if you need 1 rota, 2 rota,
yeah, with the
maybe 3's a
baseball,
bit too much.
yeah, with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
baseball art.
No, honestly, I would probably what I would do is just play all 3 different arts for 3 rota at that point.
Yeah. Are you talking about the
if
Sky Striker art as well?
yeah, just play all 3 of them.
Has that been
I
put
do think
in DB yet? Can you use this
I
guy?
think it has.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
'Cause
Yeah.
I do think that's a
Should be
cool art.
there.
I do like the idea of doing that. It's something that, going back to Magic again, it's something that Magic does too, where they have set rotation, but there are certain cards that are staples. So basically when they reprint those cards, they reprint it for whatever block they're doing, right? And whatever sort of atmospheres or environments they're in. And so it's always cool to see how that changes over time. And I think it would be cool
Yeah.
if Yu-Gi-Oh did a similar thing with their reprints, where they're I mean, they kind of do that with some alt art stuff, but Reinforced from the Army is that's a good point. Mildly upset Gerbil. Yu-Gi-Oh set rotation as well. It just doesn't see much play. That is true. Yeah, I mean, set rotation got introduced. Man, was that when did they get introduced? Was that Arc V or was that after
Really
Arc V?
now. What?
Set
There's a set.
rotation is
Oh,
hated
oh
in
yeah,
Japan.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
It
that's,
was Arc 5. Yeah,
yeah, it was Arc V. Okay. So yeah, they introduced set rotation in Arc
yeah,
V. So yeah, like, yeah, nobody's talking about that. They should be mentioning that more. That's a good point,
yeah. I
BioWolf
know
Turtle.
we have that. We do have it. It's here. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it was interesting. That card, like, the card basically became like more copies of terraforming,
Yeah.
like
And
at its height.
and there are also like
Yeah,
interesting things you can do with certain decks. I know. But like,
yeah,
yeah, it's cool to see like when things like that get used for different purposes, and um yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
It's just very neat. I think that's one of the coolest cards in the game's history.
yeah.
But
No, like speaking of other TCGs that have alt art and set rotation, like I love Pokemon's alt arts.
oh yeah,
They're some of the best. Like I love that
yeah, and
as
CS
well.
does bring up a good point where like a lot of older Yu-Gi-Oh players don't like modern alt arts of older cards. Like I can think of the Stratos alt art for instance.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, I just think that one wasn't done the best. You know what I mean? Like I agree. It just depends on the
Yeah.
art.
Yeah,
So like something like that, if the art isn't that good, then yeah, it's gonna feel as bad.
yeah. I agree though. To see it like it did kind of hurt a little bit watching E3 Bird and the Black Rose alt art. I get it was for the bit and it was funny. But like it's kind of like whenever I see someone like rip a page out of a book, even if like it's in a movie and I know that it's a fake book or something, I'm like, no, not the books. I have the same
Yeah.
attachment to Yu-Gi-Oh cards where I'm like, no, not the cards. Don't destroy those. I like those.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. No, I think the Black Rose art was, I think, a really good rendition of that for sure. I'm trying to think though, like, well, I think Cat one I think is okay. I like both. I still
Mm-hmm.
maybe am more of an OG fan, but I think the newer one that they did was pretty cool. I like Rescue Cat's art,
Yeah.
all art as
Yeah.
well.
People
I honestly
complain
am a
about
fan
that.
of whatever. Like I'm good with whatever art. Like of course I have preferences one way or another, right?
Yeah,
But like in general, I think it's nice that they have multiple options for people. So yeah, I do like actually that's a good I think the Ghost Girl alt art is probably my favorite alt arts. Except for Foot Ash. But like the one
yeah.
I remember the one with like the girl and the scythe where they're like almost like curled up like that, and that was I thought
Oh,
pretty cool.
Winter Cherries.
Yeah, Winter Cherries. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
yeah, I liked that alt art
yeah.
a
No,
lot. Yeah, I
no,
think
that
those
was
are
like
pretty good.
Yeah, no, that was like my favorite of the Ghost Girls, honestly. It was just super unique with what Winter Cherries was able to do and back when it was like really good.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It sucks that I don't know. It sucks that nowadays, like honestly, I don't think Winter Cherries is like completely terrible. It's so specific now.
Yeah, but
So
to be
like saying
fair,
that,
like
yeah,
that's a
like
lot
it's
of
like
hand
only in
traps
a
now, honestly.
yeah, yeah. No, but like also like I guess it's only really great in like say particularly like say maybe either tier 0 formats or you have like very closely like well defined like meta decks, right?
Yeah.
Um so that's where really cherries can actually like do something. So yeah.
Honestly, it's kind of funny because it reminds me of hand traps from the DM era where like, there aren't really many of them. Like or not necessarily the DM era even, but I'm thinking more like the early stage of the game where like hand traps were not really common, right? Like
5Ds
5Ds. Yeah,
or
5Ds is
maybe
the
like
perfect example,
yeah,
right? Like
5Ds, right?
Trap
Because
Dust Shoot
like
and
Hanawada,
Mind
right?
Crush
No,
are
I mean
only
like
yeah,
Trap Dust
like
Shoot.
hand
so like
traps. Like
like
not
before
like
like
traps that affect the hand. But
when you say before Valor and Maxi even
yeah,
or
before Valor
like
Maxi,
yeah,
I'm thinking things like Hanawada, right? For like
okay.
Hanawada would almost never come up, but Frog FDK, people were playing it because it did
Yeah.
stop that. Of course, there are exceptions even at that point because like people have realized with more exploration, like Herald of Armslight, really good.
Yeah,
And
and I guess like DD Crow as well.
yeah,
I would
DD
say
Crow
like
really
at the
good.
time, yeah, at the time it wasn't given as much like I guess like weight as it is like
Dang.
say later formats. But yeah,
Yeah. And it's kind of cool to see with more exploration, people realizing that hand traps
oh
are
no,
no PJ.
please,
Okay,
okay, thank
he's back.
goodness, yeah,
Uh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
If we
Desperate
find
Archfiend, that's a
anyways,
DM era
sightings.
hand trap.
Yeah.
And that
Maybe
does make
sightings,
Archfiends like
so
somewhat
just go
playable in
into
the
another
formats that they're
match.
around. They might not be as terrible as you think. Because like they have seen some success in Vampire. People have been testing it there. The big thing with Vampire is that DD Warley is at 3, so it makes them bad. kind of rough there. But I do think
Yeah.
like the Pandemonium and Deathstroke Archfiend engine is pretty good. Hello, we got another
Oh.
person in the
You
stream, or
don't.
do we
No,
not?
just me.
Oh, can you not do that in this?
Is this like the?
Okay,
Is this like your way of saying the
relax
game
now.
3? But
I
yeah.
shall talk now. Okay? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to
alright,
talk,
I
you
didn't
can
get
just
to say
talk.
anything
You
about
don't have
alt
to
arts at all.
air horn.
Okay, sure. No, go ahead. Just yeah. What is it, What
Yeah,
is it?
people complain about alt arts, and yet May 1999 is the first alt art. Like only if like 3 months after Volume 1 gets released in the OCG, with Flame Swordsman. Alt arts have been a part of this game forever. So
Ooh.
people complaining about it is just pointless.
I think.
Yeah.
I think
To be
the
fair,
most
I
of-
think like it's there's valid critiques. I could say that for sure. But I think like to be like, oh, this came out of nowhere. It's like, well, we only just saw it for like maybe a few cards, right? Like say Dark Magician. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like I think they should take more advantage of it. I just think the problem is just that what people have, I guess sometimes they only think about it with like it's only DM cards that are allowed to get that, right?
Oh,
Like they don't always like give it to
I don't know, I think
like,
most
yeah.
of the I think this is being framed kind of wrong because I feel like most of the complaints about alt arts is not that the cards received alt arts at all, is that the alt arts are bad, right? Like, or the people do not like the alt arts, right? If it had been an alt art that they thought was better, then they probably would have liked it more. But like, for instance, the fact that people don't complain about DMR alt arts, I think the sign that like the problem is not the alt art existing, it's that the alt arts are not what people like to see, right? Like in terms of
Yeah.
what the specific art is.
I guess like it's a bit of both there because like I
It
do
could
think
definitely
like
be
some
both, but
because some people are just like just like I don't care, I just want new card or
yeah,
whatever
I mean
depending on your perspective.
most of the complaints I've seen center around the art itself, but I'm not gonna say
Yeah.
that there are not people out there that are just like, no, every card must have one art, and that's it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want my memory of this card tarnished by the alternate art.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I think it is, and also like you look at like the Lost Art promotions, right? Where there sometimes cards like Foolish Burial gets an alt art, right? Because the OCG art was different from the TCG art. And
Yeah.
you know, people are generally fine with that. People like that. There are people who don't like it, but they're not vocally like, oh, this card should not have received alt art. So I think that shows that like even outside the DM era, right? There's
It
Like
was original.
I know
art.
it was originally in the
So
OCG, but like in
people
the
don't complain
TCG,
about
which
it.
is most pertinent to
Yeah,
most
I
people
get
because
it.
most people think of these cards in terms of when they come out in the TCG, unless they were specifically in the anime with a major role, for instance, like Baphomet and Chimera. People think of it as the TCG, but yeah, and there are some good
like
points in the comments here though. Radiant says actually the only bad alt art was Ash Blossom's feet, and honestly, I kind of agree with that. Because the feet was just too much, but
I don't know. I think
mildly,
Stratus also is pretty
yeah, there are definitely
I
some that are kind of
Ooh.
iffy, but mildly
Going
upset
for
journal
the
also says
pressure
alt
now.
art has potential for archetype lore stories. If they return to the brand storyline, they can reprint Fallen of Albaz with new story art, showing what he's up to in the new season of the story. And that is a very, very good point as well. It would have been really cool if like Stratos' his art had like
Oh,
connected into multiple heroes or something like that, or maybe hinted at other
Yeah.
things rather than just being like,
That's pretty cool.
you know, a different pose. And so yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. And that sort of gets
Yeah.
back into what I was thinking of like for the Magic Gathering stuff, where they do use alternate art for different storylines. And it would be cool if Yu-Gi-Oh did something similar there. But yeah, when will we get a
Like,
final Flame
we-
Lost art? You know, we need the Yu-Gi Kaiba
Yeah.
reprints.
Yeah, no, but like interestingly enough, I feel like OCG is starting, obviously I think OCG now more recently is starting to do that too. Because like a favorite one that I really liked was they did like an alt art for Medallion of the Ice Barrier. And it seems like they really want to like focus on some of the newer ice barriers
Yeah.
now. And I really like that one. I thought that was really cool. And I don't know, like as somebody that's sort of been like an ice barrier enjoyer,
Oof.
some may say.
ooh.
I
So-
really like that one in particular, but yeah.
I'm also an Ice Barrier enjoyer, not necessarily for the deck itself, although I do think the deck is interesting because it's like it's almost like a DM era archetype in many ways because like the cards are all Ice Barrier cards, but they don't really synergize the best, right? They're not focusing on like one game plan like a lot of the other archetypes in the game are.
Yeah,
so
it seems like
that
there's
is-
it's a build up. It's a build up type of strategy, and it's like the build up that they were trying to do was a bit slow at that point.
Yeah.
With like, oh, you need 2 of them on the field. You don't have ways to even extend themselves
Ooh.
like say a Prior. Which
Yeah.
it sucks that didn't come out in like Tengu. I really wish Prior did come out in Chengdu.
Yeah. But they are
yeah.
still cool. And also I do think like lore wise, they're very, very important and very cool for that reason. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Like it was fun watching the OCG stories trailer that they did where they showed all the different sort of anime snippets of different archetypes, and the Ice Barrier archetype just trying to pick out which members of the Ice Barrier was like in that circle or when they were trying to seal away Trishula, but Trishula escaped.
Yeah.
Like that was cool to see.
Yeah,
I'm still hoping.
Like, obviously,
I'm still hoping they
sorry.
make a full anime out of that, like out of all the
Yeah.
OCG stories, and it wasn't just like a tidbit for the fans. But I think it'd be a good anthology series. Yeah, it really is a
Yeah.
nice barrier. That is true.
Yeah, no, I would love
There is?
School Terminal to get like all of them. I think all of them are very interesting. It would be cool to see.
Yeah, there's a
all the
lot they could do.
archetypes and- yeah, in there to be done, like whether it is like say an Ice Barrier one or like I don't know, like say like for DT two, I like my personal favorite of that is like the Evil Swarm. I love the Evil Swarms there. And then I think for 3,
Ooh.
I'm not sure actually.
Yeah.
Three's a little tricky. I think maybe I guess I've got to be like I like the Teller Knights in 3 as well. So
Teller
that's
Knights are
probably the
definitely
3
cool.
I go. Yeah.
And aren't Teller Knights a part of the more general like storyline around the beginning of Arc Fees, like with the Shadalls and the Cleaforts and the
Yeah. So Shadal, Cleafort, Teller Knights, yeah.
no.
Yeah, and like I like the thing is too, like I liked as well the original version Constellar as well, and it's cool as well to see that they were trying to combine them with the newer support. It sucks that it just didn't do anything, but
Yeah.
that was a really cool way to end it up. Like I do wonder though. I think maybe that's going to be the eventual plan if they're doing more Ill Swarm support. Is to maybe I don't know how they would find a way to really work with the other two because I feel like with Tower Knight and Stellar, they can at least both of them can go into rank 4s. But with like Evil Swarm and Steel Swarm, it's a little bit more tricky to do.
Yeah. Steel Swarm is kind of like, I mean, you could do it. I could definitely see some broken support revitalizing that archetype, but Steel Swarm being based around tributes is kind of not the best. Like, unless you go like a Rika direction, but I don't think they would go a Rika direction. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like at least like they have like it's interesting because like the way you would even play Steel Storm now is that you have to use some of the
Okay.
Evil Storm support, like Caster in
Yeah.
particular in Kirkion, to really help out the deck function because that gives you like an immediate tribute summon
Yeah.
with Caster.
Dump Trucks finally established a board.
Yeah. Well, the thing
Yeah.
is, the interesting thing about this is that we've been talking about how broken Imperial Order is this entire time, but I definitely think there's a situation where like Imperial Order, like the player playing Imperial Order here, might not actually win the game. There is a chance that because Peter's got a pretty good command. Oh well,
Ooh.
Trapple's gonna put a
Never
damper on that
mind.
a little bit. They've already used up
Hold
a
on,
Mirror
yeah.
Force as well, so yeah,
Oh,
just
no.
passing. So never mind.
This is
I
not
guess
good.
it was a nice stream while it lasted,
Yeah.
but it's very likely that the game is going to end very soon because if Drundrick wants to commit more to the board, they can because Iowa's up, so they don't have to worry about board wipes. They can attack in for a ton of damage here. This is 3950, so Peter's at 2,000 left. So if they bring out like a
Ooh.
Cannon Soldier next turn, they win the game. So scary spot to be in for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, who is the guy in the trap? I think actually they did, wasn't it? It was like the
It's a random
deposed.
guy.
I think it was the deposed.
Wait.
Because like Hades like deposed the. There's someone who tried to wrestle with control for Hades like over the throne of Dark World, right?
I think
and-
it's the Abyss King. It's
yeah,
like
the Abyss King. Yeah.
I think that's what it is. I actually originally thought it was like like one of like Yugi's like Duelist Kingdom like vanillas like the not Feral Imp, it's the other one, Horned Imp. I thought it was originally for that trap wall, but yeah, I don't know. That is interesting. Like basically a lot of the Duelist Kingdom normals at that like after
Call of the
Smash.
Haunted was
Yeah, it was
used
on
Mystic
Tomato.
right?
Call of On should have been engraved already.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it doesn't really matter too much here. But yeah, Call of Honor should be engraved. Yeah. I don't think that would have changed much, right? But
Yeah, no,
Depends
it
on the
wouldn't
set,
have.
honestly.
yeah, Fission Trapple might also be
Never
connected. That
mind.
is true.
Unless
Oof,
he has an
knock
IO to
here. That
go.
might just be the end of the game.
Oh
Uh,
no.
Yep, that is
Oh,
the end of the game.
that
So Dump Truck
sucks.
takes
Yeah.
another, but really intense ones. Yeah, the IO just is so powerful. I mean, that's why this is Imperial format. And
Mm-hmm.
brutal stuff for sure. But
Yeah. And Knock also putting in its work too.
yeah,
As
oh,
well. It's like
Cyberjar
exactly
would
what
have
I
been
thought.
really good there.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. But yeah, with Mirror Force gone as well, like there aren't really as many traps in this format that can stop big boards. No TT. Mirror Force is at 1. Yeah, it's just rough.
PJ was
Yeah, and they're all
done
just
no
power
matter
spells
what.
here. And yeah, unfortunately the
Yeah.
IO locked that up. So IO just, backbreaking card in this format. And brutal stuff. Yeah, that's true. Imperial Order can't screw you over if you don't play spells. And maybe in the future, more people will try and cutting some spells from their decks because it's just dead against IO. Maybe you want to cut things like, I don't know, even Painful Choice, maybe against IO. Put in like Death Tornadoes instead.
Fortunately, IO's at 1.
Yes, it is at
Imperial
1,
Order, so
but
it's
that
not
is
so
like,
bad.
it does make it a
It's
little bit of a
just one
sacky card, but
thing
even
that
though it's at 1,
happens.
you can still try and do things in deck building and play around it, because if it's at 1, but it lasts for like 10 turns, or not 10 turns, but it lasts for the whole game, then you want ways to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, let's see.
It Dust Tornado in the side deck or main.
well, you could have it in the
Alright.
side for if you're like going second or things like that. But I think in the main is also perfectly fine for like if you if you are worried about IO and you want a way to deal with that, it is a way to do it. But very intense stuff for sure. And
Now,
congrats
Dump Truck and Eratos are tied at 7.
Yeah. Intense battles at the top. But if you want to join in on a future locals, anyone watching the stream out there, then head over to the YJO from Zero Discord server, linked in the description of the video. But we play these every week, and anyone can join. You just have to be in the Discord because that's where we run it. And it's always a blast, so definitely head on over there. Also, if you liked what you saw of the format here with
They
Imperial
might be
format,
coming on.
we have a monthly tournament coming up starting next weekend on Saturday. We'll be having another locals before that on Friday, so that way people can prepare for that even more. But it should be a lot of fun. There'll be a lot of spicy decks that are going to be played, I assume, beyond just this typical beatdown stuff that we saw here. And it should be a blast. So definitely head on over to the YJ from Zero Discord server if you want to participate in any of that. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, also do that because that will help. But we've got Dump Truck in the call here now. Dump Truck, congratulations on your locals win today. And yeah, what were your thoughts on the locals and just the format as a whole and your deck as well?
I thought everybody brought some really cool stuff. It's maybe a good sign for Imperial that we saw all these different decks. I don't know if we were too aware of it last time, but there was like clown control, rituals. PJ was kind of on a hand control build. Saul was on harpies or wind, if I've got that right.
Yeah, no, it was definitely harpies, and I did bring like clown control as well last time as well. So yeah.
Yeah, cool stuff. I don't know, maybe we don't need to be quite so down on Imperial. My build, it's a standard build, but it also looks a lot different than it did last time around.
Yeah, and we saw the Time Seals main. I'm not sure how many Nox you were playing in the main, but Nox is also very good, so that was awesome to see. And also, we saw some experimentation in PJ's deck as well, who's in the call as well. We saw Upstart in the main, which was really cool to see.
What's up, man?
So yeah, welcome to the stream.
There was also Banisher too from Dump Truck as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if
Banisher.
we got a chance to, but that was very interesting too.
So PJ, what was
again?
What was your thoughts on the game and the format and stuff? Yeah, that was a really intense match. It really could have gone either way, I think, in the end.
Yeah. The finals?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I had him, and then the spicy IO comes in. I can't answer it, and
no. That's the biggest flaw.
I was trying to get him down to. I was hoping I was gonna get him down to critical and go for a push, but I got the game swung around.
Yeah, it did look like that for a bit because we were talking like over the course of the stream about IO deciding like a lot of these games here. That IO is so strong. But that last game, it did look like it could have potentially been a game where I was flipped, but it didn't win Dump Truck the game, but it did ultimately win them the game, unfortunately. Sometimes you just draw the spells and it's just like rough. But yeah, I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. And both of you played very well. Like, there's one thing to draw, there's another to play it, very well. And, this applies to also playing under IO as well. And I think both of you did a very good job here. So, yeah, good stuff. And I hope that anyone out there watching this stream learned some stuff about Imperial. And if you do want to play it, hopefully these games are sort of good for seeing good players play and giving tips on how to play those sorts of things.
Yeah, actually, a nice question I have. We've been sort of going on a bit of a tangent about alt arts, and I know PJ, you yourself, have done some work for YGO from Zero, and also even TCG Rewind. I don't know if there's anyone else, but do you have a favorite alt art? And you as well, Dump Truck, if you want to answer that. Like, what's some of your favorite alt arts?
PJ, you want to go first?
I'm drawing blanks right now. You're asking what my
No
favorites
worries.
is. I don't have.
Oh.
I don't have like favorite things, so to say. I have to really think about it. So someone go first, and I'm gonna think on that.
I'll go. I prefer the OCG Mystic Tomato. I think the Senju of the Thousand Hands OCG art is fantastic. I've got a set of those from the Lost Art promotion. I like the TCG ring. Those are the ones I feel strongest about.
Yeah, I'm a big TCG ring stan as well. I like the fire. It's just so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it pops in the secret rare.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a fairly creative way of actually going about like that Senju. I gotta give it to them on that.
Yeah. And PJ, no worries if you haven't been able to think of anything, because y'all both played some long grindy games, and that does take a
Yeah.
mental toll. So no worries if you don't have an
Yeah,
answer now.
Even if like you don't have like you don't even need to say like it doesn't have to be definitive. Like you can even just mention a couple that you personally really like.
I guess
You-
I'm more fascinated with the cultural side of things, with the OCG artwork, not shying away from death, occult, and like heaven. And here it's just completely, in terms of marketing, they flip around the artwork. So I'm more fascinated with that side of things, as opposed to like what I like better or worse.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a very fascinating way to look at it, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is kind of a cultural exchange between Japan and America, and it's just cool to see, especially like when we get into TCG exclusive cards, right? It's cool to see what they do then, and like how the OCG then adapts that too into whatever support they make for it. So I think it's definitely very fascinating to see that, and I'm sure that in the future people will probably make like doctoral theses about this sort of thing, like diving
Yeah.
deep into this stuff. But
I think
yeah.
I figured out why we have the TCG Mystic Tomato art.
Okay.
Copyright.
What copyright is the
Copyright.
OCG one infringing on?
OCG's name is Killer Tomato. Its look and the name comes from the 1978 movie Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Oh,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Like if you look at the promotional art, it looks very similar, except the Killer Tomato one has teeth, and the Mystic Tomato and the Killer Tomato one in OCG does not.
Yeah. No, that's a very good
So
point.
it looks
That's
too
probably
similar.
it.
Interesting.
Because
can see
in
it.
Japan they are a bit looser with the copyright claims. I mean, that's why JoJo's is able to have all of its sort of stand names and things like that just be the names
Unless
of
it's
popular
national.
songs or
No.
musical acts. So that's probably it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think it's more the name, because honestly, I'm looking at the cover. I don't know if like actually just I don't know. Weirdly enough, it's like I feel like it's a mixture of both when you actually look at what the Killer Tomatoes look like, but like probably the name change makes the most sense from Killer to Mystic.
Yep. Killer Snake as well became Sinister Serpent. So they just didn't want to add kill to the name. Like
Yeah,
instant
honestly,
kill.
the TCG art looks more like the tomatoes in this. So actually, it might not be copyright necessarily. It could just be they don't like the pumpkin.
Or the name, or it could be the
Or-
copy, the name changes the more so the issue.
Yeah,
than the,
or maybe the TCG wanted to make a reference to the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Who
A
knows?
more direct reference
it's-
to what was in the movie itself.
It's
instead
a
of
history
the art
mystery.
of the art.
But
goodness, yeah.
yeah, I mean, for people on stream, this is like the sort of thing that the tomatoes look like. So you know, like this sort of thing, like definitely looks like the TCG art to me. But you know, let us know in the comments what y'all think about this.
Oh yeah,
We've gone on a bit of a tangent here, so I'll probably wrap up the stream here. Because we've gotten a little bit off. Well, I guess we're still on Yu-Gi-Oh, but now we're diving into cult classic movies. Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed as always, and I hope to see you all at the next one. We should be holding our next one on Friday. The exact time is TBD. I hold a vote on it for the Discord server. So after that vote goes through, then I'll schedule the stream. But yeah, look forward to that if you liked this one. But I hope that you enjoyed as always. Let us know down in the comments below what you thought of it if you weren't here for the stream itself. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off. Peace.
Don't touch that dial, kids.
No.